Hello everybody, welcome to Fruitful Trees, and as you can see there's many fruitful trees where I am today. I'm in Lockjahatchee, Florida, which is about an hour west of where I live, and there's a bunch of farms out here, or personal properties that are big enough to be farms, and I'm on a place today that's only about a little over an acre, and it is absolutely an abundance of fruitful trees. They have over 60 mango trees on this property. They also have avocado trees, beautiful jackfruit trees, and a jabocaba tree, and some of my favorite pace mamey trees. So the fellow Mark, we're going to be meeting him. We're at his property here today, and he's going to take us around and show us all of his different trees and tell us more about his land here and things he would have redid different ways or things he's glad he did this way. And pretty nice guy and a great, beautiful property. So I'm glad to be here and have him on the show today. So here it goes. Trees, here we are at a private residence. This is Mark Young, and this is an amazing house. He has about a little over an acre and a quarter. He has a bunch of fruit trees, and they're about to explode because it's almost mango season. But he's going to give us a little tour around this property. How long have you had this property?
Since 2008.
2008. So what would that be, about 12 years or so?
Around there.
Yeah, so when you moved here, was there any trees here at all?
Just pine trees.
Just pine trees, okay. So did you remove pine trees or did you just plant between them?
I primarily just planted between them. But in hindsight, if somebody's to redo this, I recommend that they start with a fresh slate and actually chop them down and actually grind the stumps down to a couple of inches below surface. Put fresh dirt on there and then start off with a level playing field. I would also suggest planting out your irrigation ahead of time, which would cause you to figure out where you're going to plant the trees, but it would also help it because your trees will grow faster with irrigation, in particular micro irrigation. Micro irrigation is actually exempt from the water restrictions, and so you can actually water every day if you want to. And if you actually do that, you will have phenomenal growth. I actually had two jackfruit trees that were planted close to each other. One was on irrigation, the other one was not. And it was twice the rate of growth. It was just phenomenal, seeing how much quicker the irrigation caused if you do it regularly with as well fertilizer and sufficient sunlight.
Okay, so you'll give us today an idea of the micro irrigation. You'll show us around and show us what that means.
Yeah, I actually gave a presentation to the Palm Beach Rare Fruit Council about micro irrigation. I actually have a display model which I'll have to dig out of my garage. Okay, I can show you the concepts.
Wonderful, wonderful. So now, is everything of all these trees on irrigation in this yard?
No.
Okay.
That's why I said some of them are, some of them weren't. What happened was originally I started planting, and you start off with one tree, and then you have no fruit, so you go like, well, let me go plant another fruit tree. And before you know it, you have over 100 trees in your yard. And that's a lot. It's actually too much. You really need to plan out your spacing, probably 20 to 25 feet between trees. And originally I did that. And then I bought more and more trees, and you plant between the original layout, and before you know it, you have a dense forest. It's too dense, actually.
Well, it doesn't look too dense here so far. I mean, but I know we haven't just started. We didn't even look around yet. But now your trees in your front, I noticed your gate's there, and they're kind of away from your gate. Do people in this area have problems if their trees are close to the gate with people taking fruit or not in this area?
I did actually have a problem where somebody came in my gate one time at about 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, and actually cut down a banana plant. And the reason is I found the banana plant, it was literally like 15 feet away from my bedroom. So someone came on my property in the dead of night with a machete 15 feet away from my bedroom, which is a little bit disheartening. Actually, I looked at my security cameras. That's how I was able to figure out the time and what happened. My solution for that was to put a padlock on my gate. And after that, the problem seemed to have gone away.
Okay, all right. And so did you purposely plan away from the front of the, because of that reason, or did you just want to path here?
It was originally just the planning. There was no particular plan on that, but I tried to have a spot to be able to mow grass.
Okay. Now, before you started planting here with this yard, did you have a lot of familiarity with growing fruit trees? Because you're from Hawaii originally, right?
Correct. Yeah, I was born and raised in Hawaii. I actually grew up as a kid with a mango tree and a lychee tree at my father's house, and the tree was actually a white piri, which is
beautiful, well, delicious.
Yeah, wonderful mango. Unfortunately, over here it actually would not do well in my yard. It might do much further to the east where it's less humid, but over here the anthracnose would kill the flowers. Anthracnose is a fungus that affects mango flowers, and as well as the fruit. And it just because of the humidity here, it would not do very well.
Okay. Yes, I live closer to the ocean, and the trees grow not as well out here as where I am. But if you know what to do, they grow really well, and you'll see in his yard today. All right. I know you have some mangoes, and mangoes are in bloom now. How many varieties of mangoes do you have?
I have about 20 different varieties. I'm actually working to reduce the number of varieties. Certain varieties are more productive than others, as well as more reliable in fruiting, and some are less susceptible to some of the new funguses and new diseases that are affecting mangoes. And so I'm working to actually reduce the number of varieties.
Right. So he has a similar situation to I do because I just planted way too much and way too close. And now that I got everything in, I'm going to just watch everything and monitor everything and realize which ones I'm going to take out later on. So, which isn't the best way to go. If you plan ahead, you don't have to worry about that. But so show us around here.
Okay, I believe this is actually a Maha Chinook. It actually is a little bit too close to this pine tree here, and it's actually been here for probably about 4 to 5 years, and it has not grown. It's not on irrigation, but the location, prime example of how location is important. And if you're shaded out by a much larger tree, in addition to the tree taking the nutrients, it will take out the sunlight and it won't grow as fast.
Okay, that's good to know because I have a pine tree in my yard, and I had one planted close, nothing grows near it well, but between the root system, the nutrients, and the sunlight, very good point on these. Okay.
This is.
So are you gonna move this, or are you gonna get rid of it, or just leave it there? And see what
I'm
happens?
just leaving it. I have enough trees. I don't have an issue with a shortage of mangoes now. Once upon a time, I did, and so I kept planting mango trees. But over time, you just have after you keep planting and planting them. As far as mango trees themselves, I had somewhere over 60, and you have to actually try to thin them out to allow airflow because the humidity is not good for the mango trees.
So how many do you have now? 20?
Oh no,
20 varieties. How many mango trees do you have now?
Probably around 60.
Oh, you still have 60. Okay.
I was probably up to around 66,
Okay.
70 around there. Too many.
What's your favorite fruit?
Mango.
What's your favorite mango? White Puri?
I have about 5 favorites.
Okay, what's your top 5?
Top 5. One would be the Sunrise. It tastes like a white bahiri. Similar. It's similar to a Bombay flavor. The Bombay also is another mango that tastes great but doesn't do well out here, but it's a similar flavor. As far as the other favorites, I'm kind of like Jonathan Crane, who says the favorite one is actually the one that's in his hand. But I often like Angie. Angie's got a nice Caribbean flavor. It's similar to a Carrie, but it has much better storage characteristics. Carries will get off flavors after about 1 or 2 days of storage. The Angie can keep for a week or so. I like a Maha Chinook. A good Maha is pretty good. Coconut cream. If you get a good one of those, it actually will taste like coconut cream pie. And I didn't believe it until I tried a good one. I was like, wow, this is really good. Now, the problem, though, is not every fruit is ripens properly. It doesn't always taste that way. But when you have a good one, it's like, wow, this is an experience.
Absolutely. Okay. What do we got here?
This is an Angie.
Angie, okay.
Yeah, this is one of the more reliable mango trees as far as producing. It was actually introduced by Richard Campbell from, at the time, Moss Botanical Garden.
So this Angie's not from Zill's program. It's from Richard Campbell.
I believe so. I believe Richard found it somewhere in some house somewhere, and they brought it down and named it Angie.
How old is this tree?
Good question. I don't know, honestly.
Have you been pruning it or no?
Oh yeah, you always try to prune a little bit, especially when you first plant it. Ideally, you should cut the top of it to encourage lateral branching. But I can't remember. I've got too many mango trees. I can't remember.
But none of your trees are more than 8 or 9 years old, right?
I first started planting probably around 2012.
So about 10 years ago.
Yeah, and now some of them I have done aggressive pruning because you have to, otherwise they would be 30 foot tall.
Okay. So what's next?
Okay, we'll just keep walking.
So excited to be in this yard.
Okay, this is actually a sunrise. This is a Sunrise mango. One of my favorites, probably actually the one I will grab if there's a bunch of them available. Now, this is actually a tree that I top worked. It was a different variety. Um, I forget what it was, but I cut it down to the stump, and then onto there I grafted scions, which are small branches of a different variety. And then I changed it. I want to allow that portion to grow afterwards. And so you're basically doing tree surgery in essence. You should be somewhat sterile in the way you know it's outside and you're in the nature's element, but you try to be as clean and sterile as possible. And hopefully you get the branches to grow, and then you have a new variety afterwards.
Sure. Now, what about the pine tree? This looks pretty close, like the other one. Has it affected this one at all?
Yeah, I mean, obviously location, location, location. And in hindsight, that's again why I recommend it's better to cut them down before you first plant. That way you have a clean slate. The amount of sunlight will affect the productivity of the tree, how fast the tree grows, and to a certain degree, how many fruit it can have, because it needs this light, the energy from the sun to be able to produce sugars.
Okay.
Okay, this would be a cotton candy, I believe. I've actually started to get confused with them. I didn't actually put labels on some of the newer trees. When you first get them, you get one or two at a time, and then you're able to memorize which ones are what they are because they're brand new. But when you're at 60 or so, you start to forget. And I planted a bunch of cotton candies. Haven't actually gotten fruit from them yet. But I've heard it's a very intensely sweet flavor, so I was looking forward to trying it out. I'm not sure how the cotton candy does over here, so it's still a question.
So I've had cotton candy, and it didn't taste like cotton candy. Maybe near the skin it did, but like you said, if you get a good fruit of that tree, they're unbelievable, but not all are the same. So, and it does, at least over in the ocean, even cotton candy is one that is questionable of how good it will be with the diseases and stuff. But it's definitely an exciting name, and see what happens.
Yeah.
How many cotton candies do you have?
I think I have two.
Two of them, okay.
I think they're right here, both of these.
Okay.
And then I actually planted a bunch of Maha Chinooks. Maha Chinooks are a commercial variety I believe from Thailand. Unfortunately, they've become susceptible to one of the new viruses, but it is what it is. This is a Keri starfruit tree, also known as a carambola, and it's quite productive. Tell me, how does it taste?
It's very sweet. I actually have one of these right in front of my house.
Okay. Now,
Delicious.
we've actually asked some other people, well, which is the sweetest variety, and the indications are the Keri is probably the sweetest variety if you're looking for starfruit. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're going to plant this in your yard, one word of caution, the first one I planted actually died of flooding when we had that hurricane come through back in 2013 or whenever it was. The entire yard was flooded. From that, I found out which varieties were flood resistant because, my yard flooded. And just enough for like 1 or 2 days of standing water was enough to kill this starfruit. So this one, if I have another flood like this, will probably die. But it is what it is. I also do suggest when you're planting stuff, if you have certain colorful fruits, don't plant them near your fence line. Plant them further inland. Because I actually had over here a row of lychee. It was actually this row here, right where it was right here. It's the, sorry, I'm facing the camera. This row here was actually a row of 3 lychee trees. And they actually started to get fairly, sizable, but I never got any fruit. So I decided to actually cut them down and replace them with mango trees. Same location, actually was on full irrigation. But just the problem was you need a certain amount of wind or of cold chill time hours to actually be able to produce the fruit. And it was not getting enough here in South Florida. So often if you're growing lychee, you're actually going to be growing lumber because you're actually not going to get that much fruit. And even in good years, you're often going to get maybe every other year production or every third year. So that's why there's not that many lychee farmers out there, because it's kind of hard to deal with the unpredictability of the lychee production, as well as the long time spans between when you plant to when you actually harvest.
Yeah, another thing with the colorful fruit, like I said, in neighborhoods like mine where people are walking back for all the time, the more colorful stuff they see, it's more attractive to them. So, yeah.
And lychees are a nice bright red. And if you want to attract something, attract, bright red is a great thing for attracting people to poach your food, as well as raccoons and other things. They see colors as well. For instance, if you're going to plant mangoes, you might actually plant a Fairchild, which actually stays green for the longest time period until it's ripe, or else a Carry, or certain varieties that don't really show
Thai mangoes and stuff. Yeah. So, would you agree that the star fruit is probably one of the fastest growing productive trees of all the fruit trees? Because that's been my experience.
It's hard to gauge it as far as it's quite productive. You have enough often to feed the neighbors, entire neighborhood potentially. If you look on the ground here, which there's a bunch of weeds, but you'll see a bunch of fallen star fruit, and I just haven't picked it. I mean, you can only eat so much of it. You can dehydrate it, cut them into slices, put it in the dehydrator, but you're really concentrating the sugars, and you're actually going to be potentially gaining weight by having so many calories in a relatively small amount of food. So, but it's a good thing to have if you're into collecting different types of fruits.
Right.
Okay, this dead tree is actually not dead. This is a persimmon. Particular variety is called South Florida. I have 3 of them actually in my yard. I planted them all around the same time, within a few months of each other. It was actually produced by Gary Zill. He actually created this variety called South Florida to indicate that it was here for South Florida's climate. As far as if you're going to plant varieties that do well in South Florida, the varieties would probably be South Florida, which also is called Hudson. The original tree was actually found in, I believe it was in Tallahassee, in somebody's yard, and it was actually brought down here and then renamed by Gary Zill as South Florida. Another one's called Winterset and Triumph. Those are the 3 varieties. If you're going to plant here in South Florida, you probably want to plant just for productivity purposes. Now, that being said, I've heard, and to a large degree I've heard the confirmation from people who've grown other varieties, that the most productive ones are what they call astringent. Astringent are the ones, when you bite into them, if they're not perfectly ripened, or not fully ripened, you'll have a horrible bitter flavor in your mouth. And you'll understand what the word astringent is about. It sucks the moisture out of your mouth and you just want to spit it out. But that characteristic goes away when it's properly ripened. And properly ripened would be sort of an overripe plum or something. So it's actually somewhat soft and squeezy to the touch. So, but it's a nice thing to have, and the good thing about having it, it's a winter fruit. So when nothing else is producing fruit, you'll actually have some persimmons.
Now, is this astringent, this variety, or not?
Yes.
It is. And so what about tropical persimmon? Is that the same thing as this one?
I've never heard of that.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a risk too. Sometimes people will actually create their own names for fruits. I had one person who was calling his a tomato persimmon. Not because it was called that, but he decided to create his own little name.
Okay.
Now, you actually look at it now and it looks dead. The trees are deciduous, which means that they drop all their leaves. Now, if you're into landscaping, I would suggest not planting this near your house if you want to show it off. And because having a dead-looking tree right in front of your house may not be the most aesthetically pleasing thing to see.
Good point.
So, this is my coconut tree. This was a $5. This is probably one of the cheapest trees I've ever gotten. It's a $5 coconut off the side of the road that somebody was selling. And I would actually suggest, if somebody's going to plant coconuts, to actually go down to Homestead. There is a nursery down there that sells purebred Samoan coconut trees. Now, they also go by the name of Fiji Coconuts. They're actually about the same height as their final height. This one potentially might get taller. But their final height is about this high. The coconuts are larger, and they're also resistant to whitefly. And now, if you get whitefly, the solution for that is they actually will do a imidacloprid drench, which is you get a imidacloprid, which is a pesticide. You drench the soil around the coconut tree. The roots will take it into the system, and it will cause the leaves to basically poison the insects, the whiteflies.
How many coconut trees do you have?
I have one.
Okay. What's your opinion about the roots of the palm coconut? I mean, how far did they go? Do they affect other trees nearby, do you think?
I have no idea. This is my only one I had. Honestly, this is the first time I've seen coconuts on here.
Okay.
I'm a little bit worried about coconuts falling on my head. So, I mean, growing up in Hawaii, they actually had a lot of coconut trees, and the coconut trees were really tall for a lot of them. But again, I suggest if you're going to get coconuts, go down to Homestead and pay like $60 to get a purebred one. They actually will cover the flowers with plastic bags to ensure the bees don't pollinate them, and they'll go through with a brush and hand pollinate each of the flowers to ensure that you have a purebred
Wow.
dwarf tree.
Wow. And what about your other trees? Do you spray them regularly, or you just let them be?
One of the problems when you have over 60 mango trees and probably over 100 fruit trees and plants is you start to get tired of actually maintaining them. It's a lot more fun when they're about 2 foot tall, but once they're 15, 20, 1 foot tall, it's a lot to maintain them. And so it's more of a laissez-faire process of allowing nature to take its course.
Okay.
I don't recommend that. I do recommend having fewer trees, taking better care of them, but we deal with the situations we have.
Okay.
Okay, next tree over here is a ST Maui mango tree. It actually has never produced any fruit. Now, it could just be a bad luck location. Sometimes you'll have certain spots which just the trees don't do well. It could be that maybe some point in time when this land was owned, maybe somebody put something there that didn't do well. Oh, another thing too, be careful about tomatoes. Tomatoes will impart a particular fungus into the soil, and that can affect fruit trees you plant there even up to 20 years afterwards. So be careful if you're planting tomatoes.
How far away can you plant them?
I don't know. I do know that tomato roots go quite far. They've had problems up in the Northeast where they will invade sewers and clog them up because they will find the little crevices, find small amounts of water, and then they'll go into those and clog up the sewer pipes.
Oh, interesting. So it wouldn't be good to plant tomatoes on a drain field?
Drain field would be all right. It's the, I mean, you're going to clog up the drain field. Oh yeah. Yeah, you don't want to do that on the drain field. I thought you meant as far as poisoning the tree. Yeah. But yeah. Okay, these two here are Venuses. This was my row of lychee trees before. I replaced them with Venus. Venus, unfortunately, actually gets one of the new funguses, but it is a very late season mango. But it's a nice big mango, but again, it gets that one of the new viruses. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend planting. These two are Venuses.
How far apart are they?
Don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
Yeah, like I said, originally I had a plan, and it was slightly different parts based on what was available space-wise.
I understand, yeah. So those are the Venuses, and then there's a big tree, some bigger trees right behind there.
Okay, you want to do it here?
Whatever way you want to go.
Okay, I figured we'd just go down the road here.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I was a bit confused.
So you left this part open for a driveway, right?
It was originally a driveway. I have 2 driveway access points.
Got you, okay.
One's a mechanical, one's an electric gate. So
okay.
I just walked out of the car. Okay, and this is a Maha Chinook.
Another Maha Chinook, okay.
It was actually a jackfruit tree here before. There was a seedling that I replaced it with a Maha Chinook. This is a jackfruit tree. The particular variety is Bangkok lemon, and a problem with the Bangkok lemon is it can be too productive, in the sense that it can actually stress out the tree, where this tree will have some decline because of that. So the remedy to that is actually to trim off some of the fruit. But it's a pretty productive fruit tree as far as jackfruits. It was actually I think the first or second one, probably the second one I planted for jackfruit trees. And very productive, but sometimes the fruit will split for some reason.
Now I've seen these trees much wider. This is pretty tall and skinny. Is that just naturally the way it happened, or?
When I first got it, I was a brand new grower, and so I didn't have I guess the word might be determination to cut them as soon as you plant them. I think when I planted it, it was a single vertical thing going about this high. I should have cut it down about 2 foot to cause more lateral branching. I did not.
Well, even on this one, how many fruits do you get each season, you think?
12.
Wow.
I mean, I've got to go and, like I said, I got to cut off. There's some dead wood up here. I got to prune off of there.
Okay.
But again, there's so many things to prune.
Yes.
So now, ideally, this is the kind of name tag I'd recommend. Get an army dog tag. Put on there 3 pieces of information. 1, the fruit type, the variety, as well as the date you planted it. And the problem, though, again, is when you're top working trees, which is where you will change the variety, the date would change, actually. So just having the name of the fruit there would be helpful.
Good idea.
But I actually created a map. Another thing to do is to create a map where if you have them in rows, you can identify which locations they are and put that on there. And that's actually what I have for these. I just haven't put name tags on the ones that were missing name tags.
Okay.
This is a Pickering Mango. If you're going to plant one mango tree in your yard or you're in a very humid area, this is the tree I'd recommend planting. It's a dwarfish tree. I'm guessing this tree is 7-8 years old and it hasn't grown that much. But its growth is to a certain degree stunted by the amount of productivity of the mangoes. Also, if you want to see mangoes, these are some of the mangoes are up here. These are lemon zest. They're babies right now.
That's the lemon zest. Okay, so that's the Pickering.
Yep.
And then we were standing right under the lemon zest, right next to the Pickering. How does this do with bacterial black spot disease?
I don't know.
So
I have too many things to keep track of.
Have you gotten a lot of mangoes off this?
It's not a particularly productive tree.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have the choice between, if you like the flavor of lemon zest, I've heard that orange sherbet tastes about the same and is actually much more productive.
Okay.
So, it's similar to, I think, PPK, which is lemon meringue as far as flavor-wise. Now, this is another Maha Chinook. Now, this one actually might have been a mislabeled one. I can't remember. One of these is mislabeled. I think it's actually probably that one there. Often when you buy fruit trees, when they're upsizing them, sometimes they start off originally as a 1-gallon tree, and then they'll upsize them to a 3-gallon, and then up to maybe a 7-gallon. Often they'll have temporary labor who will do the upsizing, and they may not be as fastidious on labeling things, and so you have the chance of having a tree mislabeled. And I had that problem for a couple of trees, and that actually gives the opportunity for the top work and change it to a variety you really want. But it happens. Even the best of nurseries.
So the one that's mislabeled here, do you know what it actually is, or you're not?
I think it's the siatong. It's
Okay.
It's a similar. The leaves are similar. It's another Asian mango, similar shaped fruit, but the taste is totally different, and the flesh color is different as well.
Okay.
And this is another Maha Chinook. I think it's the Maha. It could have been, like I said, mislabeled, but little baby fruit. We actually have multiple blooms. When the fruit turns yellow like this, it's going to fall off, so you can actually even just pull it off and toss it to the ground if you want to. And actually, without any additional fruits on there, you can just literally pull the entire stem off. And the reason is that way, in the future, when it has to grow another stem, it has an easier way. There's no existing panicle that it has to have fall off.
Great tip. Thank you.
Yeah. Another mango tree. This one's supposed to be another Maha. This actually is probably the one that's mislabeled. Produces a fair amount of fruit though. But that's not a problem I have now. I have actually too much fruit. So now this is what you should not do, I guess. Oh, the trellis is falling apart. That's great. This is a fruit cactus. It's actually called the dragon fruit. Its technical term is called pitaya. And you actually start off by cutting off one of these little things here, planting it in the ground next to a post, and that will grow up the post, and it'll kind of grab onto the post, and then when it hangs over, only the ones that are hanging over will actually produce fruit. This particular variety is called the Natural Mystic. I chose it because a friend gave it to me actually, but then researching it further, it's actually the commercial varieties that most of the farmers use because it's productive. It's got a pretty purple color. In addition, it's pretty sweet as far as the flavor profile. You will have problems where some of the fruits are very beautiful, but they never fruit or they're very unproductive. And so it's good to get a variety that's known to be productive. But you should put it on a trellis. Now this trellis has been here for probably 8 years, and it seems like it's actually kind of falling apart now, which is one of the great challenges, I guess.
So that's a wooden trellis that you put it on?
Yes, you start off with a pressure-treated post, and then I built on top of there a 2x4 frame, and I used treated screws, and even on top of the very top part of it, I put on there sort of an asphalt type of, a roofing paint to cause it so the top part of it would be, in essence, waterproof to minimize the rot.
And you'd have to get very creative to replace that trellis without...
No, I don't think you can. I think you have to...
Yeah.
Because there are thorns.
Quite challenging, yeah.
These things will poke you.
Okay.
And sometimes they'll go right through the leather gloves. So, next year, this is actually the first mango tree I planted. This is the Pickering Mango. And again, you remember the first one you planted, and this one happened to be a nice prominent spot in the yard before I had a fence or anything else. But one of the things, if you do plant fruit trees, have a fence, because you may end up having a problem with people get excited with fruit, especially if it's free fruit. So it's good to have a fence. Good fence make good neighbors. So, but actually, no, I give free fruit to my neighbors. I try to be courteous and nice to them. But it's just good practices. But the Pickering is a very intensely flavored mango. It's what they call a Caribbean flavor. It actually, when it's ripe, will have a somewhat soft texture. And so people either have a love-hate relationship with the Pickering mango. If you like the flavor, I do recommend it. I would actually recommend, though, instead of the Pickering, to actually plant the Angie. It's a very similar profile, flavor profile, but the Angie will have much longer shelf life. And the Pickering, when it gets overripe, has a very musky flavor, which is unpleasant.
Yeah.
Okay, this here is a Glen Mango. I've aggressively pruned it a couple times. Now, it is actually a very colorful fruit. It is actually probably the most mild flavor fruit. It's also the most, the best smelling fruit mango I've had, actually. Where if you smell it when you have a ripe one, it actually will have a sort of a sweet smell on the outside of the mango, which is pretty rare. And that's actually when you can tell you have a Florida mango or one that's brought in from Mexico. If they're bringing in fruits from Mexico, they actually have to put it into a hot water bath to kill fruit flies. And this is actually not just a nice warm bath. This is scalding hot water because it has to kill fruit flies. And it has to sit in there for about an hour or longer, depending on the size of the fruit, to kill the fruit fly and the larva. That kills the flavor, the ripening process, and any smells you may have from the fruit. So, but if you want an easy to grow mango, you like colorful mangoes, this is a nice mango to have.
Not just Mexico, any international mango, I assume.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're getting them straight from Hawaii, because they can ship them out there, but yeah, which is part of the U.S., but yeah, it's the mangoes, if you grow them in your backyard, or if you buy locally grown ones, they taste so much better. It's not even a comparison.
Exactly, yep.
There's a difference between having basically a sugary treat versus cardboard almost.
Exactly, I agree.
Okay, this over here is a Rosy Gold.
Wow. Isn't that supposed to be a dwarf tree or no?
There's a lot of dwarf tree marketing. A dwarf tree is actually one that you can take your hand saw, and you keep being aggressive on this pruning. No, in actuality, the only real dwarf mango tree I would say in my experience as a dwarf is a Pickering. And in particular, the ones that are from Zill's High Performance. And you won't actually buy them from there, but they're manufactured there. Because they've actually done experiments on matching the mangoes with the seed stock to try to get desired characteristics for being dwarfish trees. And the Pickering, if you have a limited space, is what I would recommend.
Okay, so this is the Rosy Gold.
Yeah, Rosy Gold has the reputation for being the earliest mango. Now, I didn't really spray, so I'm not having much fruit set from the first bloom. In fact, they all look like they didn't work out. But if you want an early one, the Rosy Gold is a good early one. I did have problems though with the Rosy Gold splitting. Not the traditional split. For some reason, there'd be cracks in the skin. I don't necessarily know why. Watch out for ants. This is another Angie. Quite productive, and unfortunately, I actually next to this I had a peach cobbler, but I was going to try to top work that peach cobbler because it was unproductive. Same size tree, produced 4 fruit. This tree would have like 40 fruit, and so I decided to try to top work the peach cobbler, but it didn't work out. The stump died basically.
Okay.
Okay, I'll get you walk around here. Okay, this is a Namdok Mai. Namdok Mai number 4. There actually are a bunch of them. The Namdok Mai number 4 is the most common one we have here in South Florida. It's a very intensely sweet mango. It kind of will remind you of the flavor of honey. It's an Asian mango. This one here is a Florigon. If you want another reliable fruiter, like this is one of the ones which will produce fruit. For instance, Chris Rollins, who was the head of the Fruit and Spice Park for over 30 years, he was right near the border of the Everglades, which is a very humid place. And this is the one mango tree that would produce fruit in his yard. So if you have a very high humidity area, the Florigon's a decent choice. It's a typical Florida mango flavor, not particularly good in any areas, but it's a reliable fruiter. But it is somewhat aggressive in its growing. You can see some fruit up there.
Okay.
And this one here actually needs to be pruned. This is a Neelam. Neelam, I got it because it's a late season mango. I do not recommend planting Neelam. Neelam is a traditional Florida flavor mango, late season, but there's nothing inherently phenomenal about it compared to what else you can plant. But it produces a lot of fruit, but they're small fruit, about yay big or so. And because of that, you have better options, is my opinion. But if you love Neelam, by all means plant it. This is another Angie, and it takes, I have about 6 Angies in my yard.
Now, do you sell the fruit?
Sometimes.
Okay, I was going to say, because for one person, one tree's more than enough, right?
If you really love fruit trees, one tree is never going to
I
be
mean,
enough.
for one variety, I mean.
I would say, yeah. It depends. If you harvest the fruit, and then if you clean them and maybe puree the flesh and freeze it, it will last the entire season. You can do it that way. But to each their own. I mean, some people want to have at least 3 trees so you can have an early, mid, and late season mango.
Yeah, but variety-wise, like you said, you had 6 Angies, and there's thousands of varieties of mangoes. So would it be better for a person that's not selling them to have one Angie and maybe 5 other different varieties, or is it a personal preference?
It's a personal preference. I would suggest if you're going to plant the same variety, multiple of them, to try to research and make sure they are productive. And it's not just because some friend or some guy on the internet recommended it. And also be aware that a fruit tree that does well in Southern California, which is very dry, may not do very well here in South Florida. And similarly, a fruit tree that does well over on the East Coast, where it's relatively dry, may suffer here over in the Western communities. And similarly, a mango tree that does well in Miami-Dade may not do as well up here, because again, there's different conditions. I would talk to somebody local who's growing things.
Sure.
So, this is another Angie. So I planted a bunch of, like I said, a bunch of Angie trees. And at some point in time, when you start to plant them, you have to find a place to plant them. Because you do, ideally, when you're planting them, want to have space so that your house is visible so you can keep thieves out. There's 2 different theories. You either be totally hidden or nobody knows your house is there, or to be somewhat visible so that you can deter criminals by, being visible.
Sure.
Now this one, I believe is another Maha. And actually, I think it's a mislabeled one because the fruit are a little bit curly. This is the fruit here. It kind of looks like a Maha. I mean, but there are ones that look similar, and the leaves look similar, but are actually not the fruit. This is actually a miracle fruit. Yeah, there are actually two different types of miracle fruit trees.
Oh, are there?
And the only reason I know this, I have both of them. Just pure by accident. I
The
found
short
that
ones and the long one, tall ones, right?
out. No, you actually tell by the leaves. If you look at the
Okay.
leaves here, and we'll do a comparison. I'll show you as a point of reference my hand. I ignore the spider webs. Get the idea of the size of the leaves. The fruit too on this one can be a little bit bigger. And then right behind it is a paste mame. You can see the fruit here. My hand will provide a point of reference.
Now, how old is that tree?
Probably 7 years old. I don't know.
Have you gotten fruit off it before?
I have not. This is actually my dog's been digging up the irrigation, and it's not been doing the best in the world.
So now that miracle fruit, which is more of a bush than a tree, is so close to that mame. You think that's an issue or no?
I would say that it's actually helped in a sense. The miracle fruit trees, when they're smaller, actually need a fair amount of shade. And I actually built a shade house originally for my other tree. So it actually will do reasonably well when it's young by being shaded out. As it gets older, it needs a certain amount of sun to produce more fruit. So it's two different stages. When it's young, it needs shade. And this is actually before it used to be a Barbados cherry. I actually cut it down and put another mango in there. So just because the Barbados cherry was quite productive, but it would get a bunch of spider webs in there. And to pick a pound of little cherries is a lot of work. To pick a pound of mangoes, you just pick one mango. No. And so for me, I changed it.
Now looking at that mango tree and that mame tree are way too close, because those mame trees grow really big and wide, and it's right on the house on the other side.
I actually pruned that off because I had them blocking my security cameras.
So yeah.
If I want to cut off a giant limb, I kind of don't worry about it. I just cut off a giant limb.
Yeah.
At this point in time, I got enough other fruit trees.
Yeah. Okay. How many mame trees do you have?
I have two, and they're both the paste variety.
Okay.
Now this is actually my micro irrigation is actually hooked up to this here. This is a timer you can get from Walmart. If you do this, you should have a filter to get rid of sand. Then you have your timer, and then you have a check valve which will prevent backflow back into the system if there is no power.
So do you have a well here, or are you using city water?
I have a well.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go down this row. We'll go down this side of the row.
Sounds good.
I guess we haven't done. This is called a Kathy. It's a K3. Pretty big fruit, and it's a unique flavor. Hard to describe.
Delicious would be a good word.
Everybody likes different mangoes, so. But yeah, so this is a Kathy. I should cut off the lower branches. Ideally, you want to cut off the lower branches when you have this many trees to encourage better airflow. This is another Persimmon, South Florida variety. I actually had a problem with it not being productive, so I planted another tree in its place, intending to replace it, and then it got productive. So, right next to it is a Canistel, Trompo variety, Canistel. This produces a fruit that's yellow. It looks similar to a mame, but it tastes like pumpkin in essence. It actually makes a phenomenal milkshake or ice cream.
You know what variety it is?
This one?
No, the egg fruit.
Trompo.
Trompo, okay.
Yeah. I've got multiple jackfruit trees, and I'm trying to convert them more to Borneo Red. There was actually a jackfruit tasting back in 2013, and in my opinion, the top ones there were one called Bosch 3, which nobody knows where it came from or what it was, and then Borneo Red, which is actually a fruit that Chris Rollins had brought back from somewhere over in Asia. And
is it a hard one or a soft one?
It's a crispy one, but
Okay.
it's got a kind of, they call it a red because it's got an orange colored flesh, but just the flavor of it is quite good, and also it freezes pretty well. Some of the jackfruits, if you freeze them, they turn to mush afterwards. This one actually retains its crispiness. And this one, I've forgotten what it is. I have it somewhere on my map. This was actually planted not that long ago, probably about 3 or 4 years ago. but it's done well.
And I could tell, I don't know if you did this on purpose, but I could tell in the bottom part of it, it was kept short. So you have 3 different panicles coming out there, which is important because if he decides to top work, I mean, if you like cocktail, he could put 3 different varieties on each one of those panicles coming out the bottom. And if not, if he wanted to keep this tree shorter, it's at a short stem. So that's good. It turned out good. I don't know if you did that on purpose or not, but it was good.
Yeah, I mean, when I planted this one, I got to the point where I had the courage to cut them low. I would sometimes cut them as close as a foot to the ground to encourage lateral branching. Because whenever it branches out, the mangoes themselves will never bear fruit from the mid part of the branch. It's always from the tip. And so every time you cut it, you have the potential for 2 or 3 additional shoots coming out. And so you're providing more options for the mango tree to have fruit. Now this one here is a Maha Chinook. This is one of the ones I've had for a fairly long time period. It's a it's hard to describe. It's from Asia, and I've got probably maybe 8 Maha Chinook trees for a number of them. It does get one of the new diseases, though, unfortunately, but it's a good tasting fruit. And it's got good storage characteristics. It stacks amazingly well. It's an oblong shape, and it actually surprisingly stacks pretty well. And it starts off green and changes color. And you can actually pick it in a mature green state, and it'll turn. The color will turn. Yeah, this is probably a bad location, but this is one that's it's actually a vines growing all over it. I'm trying to remember what this is.
There's a fruit on there.
Yeah, that's not going to help me. It'll come to me. It's either a Beverly or a. It's actually one that won the Taste Award a couple years back, and I can't remember the name of it.
It'll come to you.
Yeah. And these 2 are either the same, or either Beverly or the other one, which I can't remember off the top of my head. This one here is a Spirit of 76, and there are weeds up here. Spirit of 76 is an awesome mango. I actually had it for the first time at the Fruit and Spice Park. If you haven't done it, go down to the Fruit and Spice Park around June or July when they don't have the mango festival. And the rules are whatever fruit are on the ground, you can basically eat. You can leave what's in your belly, but you can't stuff in your pocket or carry it out. And so if you go there with a pocket knife and a bucket of water to wash off the mangoes, of course they'll provide the water there. You can try 20 different varieties in one day. And after having about 20 varieties, you stumble across the Spirit of 76, and it's a different flavor. And so that's why I planted it. It's a pretty good mango. It also changes color, looks pretty nice, and it's just a unique flavor.
Now tell us what, you pull those dry branches off. Tell us what's that about, because that happens on trees sometimes.
Okay, what happens as a tree grows, the inner branches that don't get sunlight, the leaves don't get sunlight, the tree is trying to be efficient. And so it gets rid of those branches. And so they basically become brittle, and you can pull them off. If you leave them on there, they can actually get termites and other bug infestations. Okay. So it's a good idea to try to break them off and get rid of them.
Okay, good point. Okay.
Okay. As a replacement for the lychees, actually I had these beforehand, long ends are a cousin of the lychees. And I planted 2 varieties. One's the Kahala. This is the Kahala. And the other one over there is, somewhere over here is a BQ. Those are the 2 varieties that seem to be the best based on my research. It gets a lot of fruit. These will actually be in clusters. These are from last year. This is another jackfruit tree stump that I'm top working. I left a shoot on here to make sure that it had sufficient sunlight to try to regrow the stump. I have 2 pickerings here in a row. These are actually when I had the effort and the time to actually put tags on here.
Mm-hmm.
I do recommend stainless steel dog tags with an engraver. Very simple to use, cost effective, and with the dog tag chain. Very productive. It has tastes like it has a small hint of coconut. Peppermint. This is another Pickering.
Do you have any problems with pests out here, or raccoons or squirrels?
Oh yes. My dog actually has a doggy door, so she can go out in the middle of the night and protect the yard. And she has a few scars from raccoons. Yeah, they come typically at night, and they do wreak some havoc.
They actually fight your dog?
Oh yeah, my dog will.
Wow.
I mean, my dog will. She has a good track record. I'll just put it that way. This is another. It's another persimmon, soft border variety. Again, it's summertime, so the leaves fall off to conserve water and energy. This is a Java Takaba. If there is one, and it bears fruit like this, right on the base of the tree. Now, if you plant one of these trees, and this tree is actually probably about 8 years old. It starts off with flowers here, and then it grows to have fruit, and then the fruits are not actually ripe until they turn this color. You'll actually want to prune the branches on the base of the tree away so that it's easy to harvest the fruit. These are originally from Brazil. They take a lot of water, so that's why I planted by the drop of the roof. You can also plant it by the air conditioner and run the drip line from the air conditioner to the base of the base of the tree, and it will love it. One problem though is very wind sensitive. Yeah. A certain amount of wind will topple it, and if you upright it, it can help, but if it keeps falling over time, it will kill the tree. Just I'll explain to your viewers. You want to bite into there, put the pulp into your mouth, and throw away the outside. It's just too tart.
Yeah. So good.
Okay, this is a banana. I've got a total of 3 different varieties of bananas. Fia 1 and Fia 17. They both taste like Cavendish. They're actually a bread replacement for Cavendish. The banana that you see at the grocery store is called the Cavendish, and it gets a new fungus called Panama disease number 4 that will kill the tree. And unfortunately, it's transferred from plantation to plantation by the crews that maintain them. When they cut down a tree, the machete is coated with the virus. And so when they go to another orchard, if they don't sterilize their equipment, they transfer the disease to another plantation when they do the pruning.
Wow.
And so it's actually going to make the Cavendish extinct at some point in time. So they had a selective breeding program where it would take about 10,000 bananas to find one seed. They plant the seed and try to have a newer variety. So they came out with about, I guess, at least 17 different varieties. And I got 2 of them, Fia 1 and Fia 17. This is not a fruit tree.
How many trees do you have that are not fruit trees on your property?
Including pine trees?
No, not the pine trees, just...
Ones that I planted?
Yeah.
I would say 2.
Okay.
These are plumerias. I got a white and a pink.
Okay.
I'm from Hawaii, and people in Hawaii will often get the flowers and make a lei.
I got you.
Now, this is the other miracle fruit tree. Now, you can see the size of the leaves in comparison.
Yeah.
It is much smaller. And the fruit are also smaller as well. Let's see if there's any fruit on here. Now, I actually had built a shade house, and it actually seemed to have remembered where the shade house is located and stopped growing. So just recently I've removed it, and it started to actually finally grow past its...
So you planted this next to this mamey tree, just like your other one, right?
Yes.
On purpose?
Yes.
Okay. Just to shade it out eventually?
It's partial shade. I mean, now this one has gotten old enough it doesn't necessarily need the shade, I think.
Okay.
But when it's first starting out, it definitely needs the shade.
And everybody, that is not a tree. It'll grow big. It's a bush, so it will grow tall, but it's not going to grow taller than this mamey, so everyone knows.
I think the champion one is about 20 foot tall.
Wow.
Gene Joyner has it. This is a jackfruit tree. Whoa. This is a Fairchild Sweet. And I'll have to make a name tag for that. But the flowers start off, these are the male flowers here. They start off as, I'm sorry, let me go here. This is the male flower. it turns this way and it has pollen on there. Then it turns mildew, like this one over here.
Okay.
And then it finally dries up to like this one's here. And this is the female flower after it's turned into a fruit already.
How do you know it's a female flower? Just by the green behind it?
By the look of it, like this one's another female. The texture of it's different.
Got you.
And it doesn't turn moldy. You also want to remove these little shoots here. But this is a Fairchild Sweet. Another fruit here. The ones I have haven't really been that sweet, so I'm not sure how they got the name. I planted about maybe 4 or 5 of them from the Fairchild. They had a Jackfruit Jubilee and they had a bunch of trees there.
How old is this tree?
I don't know. I'm guessing 5 years old. This is another tree. This was supposed to have been a sweet tart, but it was mislabeled. I'm not sure what it is. It looks like a sweet tart, but it's not.
You don't know what it is?
No. I thought about cutting it down, and to top work it, but I haven't done that yet.
Do you have a white Paris? I know you said you grew up with one.
No. I had researched it, and it wouldn't do well out here.
Got you.
There are people, if that's the fruit they grew up with, by all means, grow it. I'm all about trying to have an easier time.
Yep.
I got enough that I don't want to spend a bunch of hours working on one little tree. I believe it's a triple set. This is actually you should not be doing. That's where you leave labels on the tree to the point where it actually outgrows the branches on.
So what is this tree?
This is a. Oh, it says M4 actually.
It's an M4. Okay.
I thought it was a triple set. That's the triple set. The one I couldn't figure out was a triple set.
Okay.
In the other row over there.
Got you. Got you.
This is where I was trying to find places to plant things. Now this is another one I top worked. This is another sunrise. I just really love the sunrise. So I cut down what was a Valencia Pride. The Valencia Pride, I had actually created a dwarf Valencia Pride by putting enough effort on there, enough TLC, and kept it around, I don't know, 8 foot tall. It could reach the sky for all you know, but a Valencia Pride is an aggressive grower. I had actually tamed it, and it had produced about a dozen fruit. Then there was a heavy rainfall, and half the crop split. Often with certain elongated mangoes, when you have a heavy rainfall, which you have out here in the western communities, the water will saturate the roots and will feed into the fruit and sometimes cause them to burst. And that's what happened. And I was like, I can't have half my crop being lost for one rainfall. So I cut it down to top work it, and I turned it into a sunrise. This is Beverly.
Beverly, okay.
And this is the one I can't remember what it is. Another one. It's it won the Taste of the Year back, I think, in 2016 or so, from Zills.
Well, it's one of your bigger ones.
It just hasn't been trimmed.
Yeah.
Now this is a Fairchild, and this is actually an example of what you should not be doing in your yard. This is actually called Suji Mold, and this is caused actually by aphids somewhere above them that are feasting on the tree and are pooping down on the leaves below, which their sugary poop will produce the what you see there. And so somewhere up on a branch above there is where they're located. That can be solved with neem oil, but you shouldn't spray them on a warm day. You want to spray them at either it's like sunset, or you can use pesticides, more aggressive pesticides. Neem oil is actually a horticultural oil that will smother the aphids. But this is the Fairchild. This is one if you have you're close to a fence line and you don't want to attract attention to the mangoes. This is the one where the fruit will stay green until they're about to ripen. Then when they turn a bit yellow. And this is actually what happens when you don't pick the fruit. You have little trees that will come out.
Now, if you wanted to, can you plant that and top work it?
You could plant that, and yeah, top work is actually how they graft them.
Yeah, can you?
Probably not that one, but the smaller ones you probably could.
Okay.
Okay, these are some more bananas. Now, there actually is a strategy on bananas that you should employ that I'm actually not doing, which is you should try to remove all the bananas from the cluster that to produce 3 different stages. One, a mature plant. Second one would be one that's kind of in mid-growth. And the third one would be what they call a sword sticker. And that way you actually have a phase of growth, because once it bears fruit, it has to come down. Either you cut it down or it'll fall down itself. But that'll increase the productivity of the cluster. I haven't done that, but that's what you should do. Okay. This is a black gold jackfruit tree. As you can see, it's quite productive. And this has the potential to get quite tall rather quickly. So, if you like it, now the black gold is actually a soft jackfruit. If you like soft jackfruits.
Yeah, this is my favorite variety, and
How many varieties have you tried?
a good amount.
Okay.
And I don't know the names of all them, but I like the softer ones, and this is my favorite one. So, have you ever pruned this ever?
Yes.
Oh, you pruned it and it's still this tall.
Yeah, you see right over here.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah, I can see, and it still stays this tall.
Yeah.
Wow. So how many do you get off this normally?
I actually didn't harvest them. Some of them, if you see these little things here, they fell onto the ground. And,
Wow.
I should have been harvesting them. Just you get tired of cleaning them.
Yeah. I love it. I love this variety.
This is a poppy jackfruit. That's one of the ones that came from Fairchild.
What's it called?
Poppy.
Poppy.
P-A-P-I. It's a nickname for father that I guess in certain Latin communities is a word of affection. And in other Latin communities, it can actually be an offensive word, calling somebody an old person. But I think it was named affectionately.
Nice.
So this is actually a jackfruit tree that was a seedling. This is very productive. We're talking like it had maybe 40 fruit on it one time.
Wow.
The fruit tasted horrible. It was just not very sweet. It was a seedling. So again, I recommend not planting seedlings. This is a Pickering Mango. Once upon a time, it was very productive. It has now been shaded out by the jackfruit trees. Oh, actually, my bad. This is actually not a seedling. This one here, this is a J31.
Okay.
I actually had a seedling over there that I cut down.
So you cut that. So this is a J31.
Yeah, it's a J31.
Very productive.
It was one recommended by Richard Campbell. I'd actually asked him if you could have one jackfruit in your yard, and at that point in time, back probably 8 years ago, this is one he recommended. This is before Fairchild came out with their own named varieties. But it's very high latex. If you cut into it, you will experience the latex experience, which is a very sticky sap that comes off the fruit.
Now the black gold, does the fruit turn black or not necessarily?
Only if they're rotting.
Okay, no, because I've had some turn black and they were great inside, and I don't know if that's why they call them black gold or not.
Black, I mean, in my experience, the jackfruit trees, when they turn black outside, that's kind of a sign of, overripe. Where you definitely have to pick them. Usually the best indicator is the smell.
Sure.
And if there's a certain amount of gift to them.
Wow.
Now this one is called Thai Everbearing.
Yeah.
Here, try this one. It's not the sweetest one, but the nice thing about it is the fruit are all in clusters. They're easy to harvest.
Delicious.
This one is a Pakistani Mulberry. It is actually sweeter than the Thai Everbearing, but it's not as easy to pick the fruit. Okay, this is a Borneo Red Jackfruit tree. I've got, I think, 3 right now. Around 3. 3 Borneo Red Jackfruit trees. This is one of the more recently planted ones.
Any of them fruiting it?
Oh yeah, the ones that's how I really determined that I like the fruit. This is actually something you can do to actually produce your productivity of your mango trees. The primary pollinator for the mango trees is actually a special type of bee. It's actually kind of green color. I think it's a quasi-fly. You can actually build a little house for them, in essence, for them to actually build their nest in, so that they will actually be around where your mango trees are.
Oh, wow. That's a great idea.
And I use pressure treated wood, and it seemed to work. So back there is a Florigon, a Venus, and a sweet tart. This is a sweet tart.
How's that do out here?
It does well. It actually splits. Oh, this is actually the actually it's not a fly, but the flies actually are the primary pollinators for mangoes. This is actually a cocktail tree, the only cocktail tree I have. It started off as a pineapple pleasure mango. It wasn't very productive for me. Now, if you live in a different area and it's fine for you, more power to you. For me, I decided to cut it down. I did leave one branch as pineapple pleasure. I started to convert it to a sweet tart, and then I have sometimes issues with sweet tart splitting. Not so much the traditional split, but they actually will crack on the top of the fruit, and I don't know why. It could be a calcium deficiency. And then, so I planted another branch of Maha. Everything else after that was Maha Chinook. And so this is about the one cocktail tree I have.
Okay.
And this, once upon a time, was a hydroponic system. I've actually started to plant dragon fruit on there. So I took out some of the extra posts and I planted dragon fruit. This is a coconut cream, and either it's years or it's very productive or not productive. But the fruit can be phenomenal. This is an Ugly Betty.
Very good. I like that.
Yeah. Ironically, my fruit are all buried near the bottom and not on the top, and I don't know why. But it's what it is. This is actually what your goal is when you actually stump a tree, is you actually want to cause it to have a bunch of small little branches coming off, and then onto that you can graft to top work a tree. That's what the goal is when you see me generally trim a tree back, is to stump it to try to utilize the rootstock. This is a very established rootstock, but you'll change the variety, so you have a variety you'll really like more. If you actually see these little animals down there, I got some guinea pigs as an experiment to try to control vegetation. This is a sapodilla. Particular variety is Alano.
This Alano?
Alano, yeah. Oh wait, no, this is Alano. This is Hassia. Excuse me.
Hassia.
Hassia.
So Hassia sapodilla.
Yep.
Okay.
So, pretty good fruit. Largest fruit possible, which is the ox. I don't recommend it because the ox is not as sweet, and it's kind of a gritty texture. And when you're brand new, you want the bigger the better. But I would recommend, if you're going to get a sapodilla, probably get an Alano and have a Alano back in the back part of the yard. And the reason is it's decent sized fruit and they're productive.
Have you heard of the butterscotch?
I've heard a lot of things. They can't keep up, honestly. This is another Mame. You can see the fruit back
Is
there.
that a paste as well?
Yes. I originally had a Lorito. The Lorito is a really red flavor. I talked to Julian Lara, and he'd recommended the paste.
Yeah.
And they even have his family was well known for being very knowledgeable on Mame.
Yeah, I do a lot of videos with him, and I just got some paste myself, and on my channel I talk about it a lot.
Yeah, I did have a Lorito once. It tasted pretty good when I was brand new to it, and I had to figure out after the fact what it was. But it was like a bright red flesh, and it was amazing as far as the way it looked. I think we actually had the USDA speak at the.
Well, what happened to it?
I think I transplanted it. I tried to move it somewhere, and it didn't. Transplant didn't work.
All right, beautiful tree.
Yeah, ideally, if you plan it out better, or you put things where you want them to be finally, and then don't plant them until that time period, you're better off. The problem is often something new comes up, and
I've learned that.
you want to try something new.
Yes, I've learned that.
This is another Angie, and this is another Maha Chinook.
Angie, Maha Chinook, okay.
And the station over here is actually all right. This is a Mai 2.
My two jackfruit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Biggest one I got off of here was probably 45 pounds.
Wow. Wow.
Now the trick is you make friends and you give it to them and you have them clean it with your help. You know.
Yeah.
No, it was a great learning experience. I had a great time with some friends of mine. Great learning experience with their kids, and yeah, we split the flesh half or whatever. But yeah, it's supposed it was not very productive, but it's been productive in the later years. Also, if you want to, you can connect orchids to your trees and actually have them grow with natural water. You should water them though during the drought time periods. But you'll find if raccoons climb the tree, sometimes they'll knock those orchids off.
How tall is this tree, you think?
As you can see, I've cut it a few times.
Yeah.
Jackfruit trees are pretty determined to try to get as tall as they want to get to. I do try to prune them, try to keep them down to about 15 foot. But again, what you see, it just keeps growing. So,
From your experience, does pruning them hurt the production or not necessarily?
it can cause a decline, so can overproduction of the fruit. By no means am I an expert on jackfruit, but just based on my own experience in my own yard. Now this is a cack mango. I can actually move this label to where it's going to not be as tight on the branch.
Cack mango, okay.
It's not the best location for it. It doesn't get that much sunlight. So it's not, actually I've not had fruit off of here yet. This is another Borneo Red, another more recently planted one. And this is my established Borneo Red. And this is actually where the branch broke off from having too much fruit.
Wow.
So I actually should get a saw and prune this off here.
Borneo Red, okay. Nice.
I do have some bees. I don't necessarily recommend bees unless you're really into bees. Oh, actually behind here is a Marcus pumpkin.
I was going to ask you, I didn't see any other avocados here. Is this your only avocado?
No, I got like five or
Okay.
six. This is a Marcus pumpkin. This is the vine. The Marcus pumpkin is known to be a very large avocado with a lot of flesh on it, but it's not known for being very productive. So at one point in time, they actually tried it commercially, but the productivity of it just wasn't sufficient for commercial purposes. If you're going to plant avocados and you want to have as many as possible, it's good to usually mix what they call an A and B flower. The flowers are the time of day that the flowers open, and it can increase the productivity by maybe 10%, which is important if you're a commercial grower, not as important if you're a homeowner. So if you want to just have one avocado tree, you can. Just you'll have a little bit more fruit if you have the mixture of flowers. The flip side is if you have a neighbor who's got the mixture, that's probably close enough.
Sure.
So you're good.
Sure. I see more avocados in back. So you said you had 6 avocados?
Probably 5.
So you want to tell us the varieties? You want to show us? Up to you.
We can walk through there.
Okay.
We'll go through it this way. Okay, so that was the Marcus pumpkin.
Okay, Marcus pumpkin was that one.
Okay. For mangoes, this is a kit mango tree. I need to top with this. It was the later season mango, but it gets some of the new diseases. In addition, it gets anthracnose pretty bad. This is a Duncan mango tree. Very productive. This is another Pickering.
How do you like the Duncans? Do you like them?
I like it all right, but when you start to have 60 mango trees in comparison to the other mangoes, it's not as good.
Sure.
But once you have so many different flavors, you're like, well, I can get better stuff out there. So, right next to the beehives over there is the Miguel. It's a Miguel.
Miguel avocado. Okay.
Yep. And then this is a Monroe. This is a Lula. This is actually a tree I got from Alex before. It's a 1 yellow.
Wow. How long ago?
I don't remember. Maybe 8 years ago. Oh. Spiders everywhere. There's another Canistelle over here under the weeds. Let me show you the weeds.
Okay. Alrighty.
And this is why you don't want to plant so many trees. This is another Namdak Mai.
Nice tree.
Thank you. the choquette.
So quick.
And then behind there, this is a Alano. And they say they're small fruit. That looks pretty big to me.
Yeah.
I mean, on average, they're smaller. Now this is Sunrise.
Wow, that's a
Probably
big tree.
my favorite mango in the yard. If I had just one mango, it actually looks pretty nice too. It turns kind of a sunrise color. Next to it is the Maha Chinook. And you can see here that they're actually too close together. They're shade down each other. At some point in time, I gotta probably cut down this Maha.
You see that too close.
Okay, this is a sweetheart. This is Angie. It's an Angie. This is. It used to be a Pina Colada. It wasn't very productive. It grew only male flowers for me, and so it wasn't. You know, I was trying to top work that into another Maha, and then since then it's gotten shaded out by the other mango trees. This is the Simmons Avocado. And I have climbed up there. You can see where I cut it off to try to prune it.
Uh-huh.
And it just keeps growing. Now, if you plant avocados, you do want to plant them on the high ridge of your property. It's just, it's more productive that way. And it's resistant to flooding. And you'll find that out when the first time your yard floods after a major hurricane. And this over here is a Malika Mango.
Okay.
And there's mangoes over here, and there's a Venus back there. And that's pretty much it. We're going to talk a little about the micro irrigation. These are actually a composite of parts from different places. These are called spray sticks. They're commercial spray sticks that I got from Loxahatchee Irrigation, Loxahatchee, Florida. And what they are is just a little stick that has a notch cut into them. And you put into what's called spaghetti hose. You have to buy the hoses in about 1,000-foot spools. And what this does is you can pull this off and reverse it, and it'll shut off the irrigation. In addition, if it gets clogged, for instance, if some ants decide to build a nest in there, or if there's any sand, you can actually clear it by when it's running, pull it out, and just put it back in. And that clears the clog, typically. Now, the actual piping, I would actually recommend a 3/4, just a 1/2 inch. But you can get this from Lowe's or probably Home Depot. And it's a very rigid pipe. It's hard to squeeze it to collapse it. So you actually can bury this under the ground. And these are the connectors. So you just cut that and you connect it, and they're variable so you don't hit them with a mower. And you'll actually have an adapter that will puncture holes into this pipe, and you'll connect the spaghetti hose into this pipe. And this is how the micro irrigation should be done, along with the timer and the filter that I showed earlier. And this is actually exempt from water restrictions.
Okay. And how often do you water your trees?
Right now, they're actually mature to the point where I really turn off the irrigation. When they're starting off, I originally would do them once a day for about an hour. I'm on a well, and there were no restrictions because of micro irrigation. And I figured the more the better, because I'm in an area which has sugar sand. And so there's complete drainage. I don't have issues with fungus because of standing water. Now, that being said, it could have been done for half an hour, and I would suspect that the once a day is probably better than every other day. That combined with fertilizer, and your trees will grow far more than if they have no irrigation, or even if you have just regular lawn irrigation. They'll do a lot better with micro irrigation.
Okay, good. Very good. All right. There's several different ways to irrigate the trees, but that's probably the most common way, right?
This is, I would say, is the preferred way. They have a micro irrigation system at Lowe's and Home Depot, but those sprayers are not as easy to clear. These are designed for commercial farmers. They're actually designed to fit inside of the small little buckets that the fruit tree growers are growing, so each tree has irrigation.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing that.
Sure.
Thank you for showing us your yard.
Sure, my pleasure.
Okay. All right, everybody. That was Mark. I told you he's a cool guy, and this beautiful house he has here with all these fruit trees. That's just a wonderful place, but it's a great example of how things can get overwhelming very quickly, where you start out and you have your little plan of what you're going to grow, and you're excited about growing many things, but then things happen that you didn't know about, and then things you want to do you don't have time for. Definitely a reality visit here today, and I'm glad I came out to visit Mark and also his property and his trees. And we're always learning. I did learn a couple of things today, and that's a good thing. I'm going to go check my miracle fruits and see if I have both of those varieties. If you have a property that has pine trees, definitely, if you can, cut them down before instead of planting in between, and don't plant too close to them. And just consider the future of when you plant. Now, we had a lot of his favorite varieties of several of the trees from one variety. Unlike me, I have a disbursement in my smaller space. I don't have room for all these varieties, but I'm right along with him. If there's a mango you love and you just want that variety, that's fine, for each his own. And I'm at the point where I want to taste as many different varieties as possible. And it's always better to taste the fruit before you put it in the ground. But sometimes you could just grow it and experiment and see how it turns out. Sometimes you might hear certain things, but you might grow and it might not be as productive for you in your area. As you know, on this channel, I go to many different areas and I visit many different farms, and what works at one might not necessarily be best at the other, or vice versa. But the coolest thing is each person's figuring out what works best for where they are, and also for their personal preferences. And that's what I like. Now, I, like Mark, planted many mango trees, and I love mangoes. You know, if I had to do it all again, I probably would have planted less mangoes and more of some other trees that I'm now finding out about, like the different varieties of star apples, and maybe different varieties of mamey, and so on, and not just everything for one season, just mangoes, even though there's different mango seasons. And I definitely wouldn't have planted so close, but you know, like when I go to some of the farms, they say they plant close with the intention of taking some out later on. They just want to have different varieties for now. So there's many different cool ideas. I loved Mark's avocado collection, and his idea about avocados is just get commercial varieties and not mess around too much with all the new exotic varieties, because you don't know how they're going to turn out. But the commercial varieties are proven, so that's pretty cool. And he has his own preferences for his jackfruit, which is really nice that he's tasted many. He went down to a jackfruit festival and he tasted all the different ones and picked out the ones he liked the most. And you know, the reality of this, I mean, he could prune more, he could spray more, he could do all these things, but eventually you either run out of time or you're just not excited as you were when you first got them. That's the reality of growing trees. Especially when you do it on a hobby and not as a commercial level. So we all get that at some point, and if you don't, you will at some point. But at the same time, I think he's doing an excellent job maintaining what he has and being involved in this. And I'm so glad he welcomed me to come on out to his property. Now, you know, him being from Hawaii, he had these 2 non-edible trees on his property. I actually had a nice smelling, beautiful lang-lang tree that I put there because I love the smell. But when I ran out of room, I said, hey, I got to get rid of the non-edible trees. But he definitely has some more room to grow here if he wanted to grow different varieties of things. But it sounds like and looks like he's satisfied with what he has. He admits he has more than enough and more than he'll need. And that's pretty cool. But if he wanted to, he has this long driveway here that goes around. He has 2 driveways. And another person I interviewed somewhere else, they literally got rid of their driveway and just planted trees because they just wanted to have more trees. But they have a much smaller property than he has, and they're trying to fit many trees in a small level. I go to many different farms and places, and I like this place because it's about a little over an acre, and I like the disbursement of the trees, the way he put it. Considering where he is, and he's learning which trees growing good in this area, and top working what he has to and learning about that. He's not going too crazy with the different cocktail trees because it's just more work, and he's trying to do less work and be more productive instead of creating more work and being less productive. So it's very cool. And, you know, even though he didn't admit it, I think, you know, that his dad was growing a mango tree. It was passed down in the genes because he wanted to come here to Florida and grow trees. So I think that's pretty cool. And there he is. So, Mark, thank you so much for having us come on out here. And it was really wonderful. And if people have comments or questions, you can post them below the video, and I'll pass them along to him. Is there anything you want to say to the crowd before we...
No, keep growing. If you have an inspiration, by all means, plant whatever you want to.
Great, great. Words of inspiration. Keep growing. All right. All right, everybody. This is Mark Young and Paul with Fruitful Trees. Have a great day, and thank you, and keep growing, brother.
Thank you.
Yes. All right.